on Trumpism. And Liz Cheney is not going quietly. She had this op-ed in the Washington Post essentially saying that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, that the party really has to decide where their future is, and they have, at least for now. Right. Does this matter in the long term? If you look at the sort of demographic shifts in the country and the ways in which particularly suburban voters are trending, sure, but in the short term, it's probably a gamble that's worth taking for Kevin McCarthy.
Right, they believe, Manu, building the foundation of 2022 on Trump. It's a house built on a foundation of lies, but they believe it gets them back into power. You're part of this reporting, News CNN reporting of what's happening out in Liz Cheney's state in Wyoming, in the district, and it's fascinating, and it just underlines, it underscores what we're getting here, what the Republicans are going to get when they force Liz Cheney out. And I want to read a little bit from it here. Chuck Gray, a Wyoming Republican state legislator, absolutely believes that former President Donald Trump won the 2020 election. He says that Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney's vote to impeach Trump for inciting the riot was unconscionable and disgusting, and cannot stand her months-long effort to push back against Trump's big lie, that he actually won the race. The big lie is what Liz Cheney is, Gray told CNN. Liz Cheney is the liar. He says Liz Cheney is the liar. He says the media, not Donald Trump, was responsible for the insurrection. That is fantasy land.
Yeah, and I asked him multiple times whether or not the Trump supporters had actually come into this building on January 6th, that everybody saw with their own eyes, that there's been ample video evidence that occurred, and he said would not say whether or not, in fact, Trump supporters were in this building, and pivoted to what happened last summer, Black Lives Matter, criticized the media, and this all comes as both Gray and the other Republicans in the race are vying for that Trump endorsement. And what we've seen, and not just in Wyoming, but in other primaries across the country, is that the litmus test is about whether or not you endorse Donald Trump's conspiracies and lies about the 2020 election. If you don't, you end up in people like Liz Cheney. You can get targeted by the former president. If you do, potentially you could win his backing. And the way the Trump forces are going after Liz Cheney is that they are trying to unite behind one single candidate. Trump is weighing an endorsement. There are interviews of potential candidates. Others are weighing whether they should get in, and they are concerned that if there are multiple candidates, essentially could fray the anti-Cheney vote. So they look for an effort to try to clear the field, find one specific candidate, but there's a real serious effort. Cheney's paying attention to it, and Trump team is as well, as they believe, Trump allies believe, she's vulnerable if they find the right candidate.
And they believe they want to make an example of her, and that she's a high-profile example. Obviously, the daughter of a former vice president, an establishment Republican, if you will. Neil Henderson, you mentioned the op-ed. I want to read some of it. While embracing or ignoring Trump's statements might seem attractive to some for fundraising and political purposes, that approach will do profound long-term damage to our party and our country. We Republicans need to stand for genuinely conservative principles and steer away from the dangerous and anti-democratic Trump cult of personality. Everything she says in the op-ed is factual about the elections and all that. What's interesting to me is that politics in the end is about math. And there aren't many Republicans who are raising their hand saying, I want to stand with Liz Cheney. Put me on television. I want to stand with Liz Cheney. There are some, if you ask them a question, Senator Romney, Congressman Kinzinger, but there is not a flood of Republicans coming to her defense because they understand the math.
They understand what is happening to her. She's being ousted from leadership. They also understand what happened to people like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker and Justin Amash. They didn't have a future in the party. They were essentially run out. This is Trump's party. You have to pay loyalty to him. You have to spout his lies to be a member in good standing at this point.
That's the key point. To be a member in good standing, you have to accept a lie. You want to join that club? To be a member in good standing, you have to accept a lie. There it is. Neil Henderson, Manu Raju, grateful for the reporting and insights. Up next for us.